Hello, how are you? We are nearing the end of the year and I've been very busy lately. I mean, I think everybody is at this time of year, but I have some time coming off soon. I'm really looking forward to that, and I have a pile of new books here that I'm hoping to dive into over the holiday and in between doing festive things. So I want to discuss all of these books, some of which publishers have kindly sent me and others I bought myself. I would love to know if you have read any of these books or if you're interested in reading any of them. Also, this video is very kindly sponsored by Serious Readers, who create excellent reading lights. So more about them in a few minutes. Now, the very first book I want to talk about has a very autumnal cover and feel to it, and that is The Caretaker by Rash. And this is set in a small Appalachian town in 1951, where not many people are tolerant of difference in this town. And so it follows a man who is the son of a very wealthy family, but he falls in love with and marries a woman from a very humble background. So his family kind of turn their backs on him, but he sets out on his own with his new wife, who becomes pregnant. But then he goes to fight in Korea, and while he's away, he entrusts the care of his wife to a good friend of his who's the caretaker of a cemetery and who is also very different and kind of shunned by the rest of the town. So we follow the story of his wife and this caretaker when a secret is uncovered, and that kind of shakes up their whole arrangement and the men's friendship with each other. It sounds like a very powerful story. I know the authors Alice Munro and Richard Russo are a fan of this author, and I've never read him before, so I'm keen to try reading this new novel. Next, I have a couple of new novels from Australia. The first is by Kate Grenville, who I've really enjoyed reading before, and her new novel is called Restless, Dolly, Maunder. It's set at the end of the 19th century in New South Wales and is about a woman who wants to have an independent life for herself. Despite getting married and having children, she wants to forge her own way, and she's navigating this period of great social change. And also the inside of this book has really beautiful end papers. Then I have a very big new novel called Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright, and this is set in an Aboriginal town in Australia following a number of individuals and families who are torn between honoring their ancestors and integrating with the white society in Australia, and also grappling with environmental change and a lot of issues. So this is quite a long novel. It's over 700 pages, and it won the 2023 Queensland Literary Award for fiction, and the great author Robert Macfarlane is a fan of it. He says, "I'm awed by the range, experiment, and political intelligence of Alexis Wright's work. She is vital on the subject of land and people. Praiseworthy is a magnificent novel by a true giant of literature." I don't know if I'm going to get time to read this over the winter break because it's going to require a lot of commitment, but it sounds so good, so I definitely want to get to it at some point. A new novel with a very moody, wintry cover is Run to the Western Shore by Pears, and this story is set in 72 AD in Britain. It follows a man who's a slave who's been exiled from his people for a very long time, and a woman who's the daughter of a local chief. And this pair run away with each other, and they're pursued by an army. So it's a love story, but it's also bringing to life this long ago era. And I'm always really interested in historical fiction that's set in the far distant past. A small new book of nonfiction is On Writing and Failure by Stephen Marche. And anyone who has tried to become a writer or lived as a writer for any amount of time knows that there is a lot of failure that goes along with this commitment to the writing life. So this is kind of advice on how to kind of navigate this and live with all of this failure while trying to stay true to yourself and trying to continue writing and putting things out there and submitting them. And he uses a lot of literary examples like Jane Austen and Dostoevsky and a lot of failure that they encountered, before becoming the great literary luminaries that we know them to be. And this is published by Sort of Books. And I met the publishers recently who were really lovely and who sent me this. And Sort of Books published The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida by Shehan Karunatalaka, which won the Booker Prize last year. And Karunatalaka is an author that experienced a lot of hardship and failure in his writing career before going on to win the biggest book prize in Britain. And so it's just a wonderful example of that. And I'm looking forward to reading this book, which was born out of a number of essays that the author wrote, and he kind of reconfigured them and wove them together to tell this cohesive tale about the writing life. As I mentioned in the beginning, this video is very kindly sponsored by Serious Readers, a company that creates superb reading lights for indoor use, like this one. This is my high-definition table light with the lightweight base. And as much as I enjoy the festive period and joining in the celebrations and seeing lots of people, there's always a small part of me, well, actually quite a large part of me, that just wants to be here with my book and my reading light and a cup of tea, just reading on my own. So I will be getting some time like that over the holiday period. And I do like the idea of reading by the Christmas tree, but it's really not bright enough just having those lights. But this lamp really beautifully illuminates the page. The light feels warm and natural. So I'd really recommend checking out Serious Readers if you're looking for a great reading light. And I'll put a link in the description below. And if you decide to buy one, I have a special offer for you. Be sure to enter the offer code SR455 when checking out, because this will save you £100 on a high-definition light and give you free delivery. So if you are looking for a great new reading light, please do have a look at them, and I hope you have a wonderful festive period. I have a couple of autobiographical novels, and I always find it really interesting how authors draw upon their life, but then kind of reform it into fiction. So first there is Undiscovered by Gabriela Wiener, and this is a story about a woman in Paris who's in a museum looking at an artifact from Peru that was taken from that country and put into this European museum. And she is someone who has a mixed heritage of both colonizers and the colonized of Peru. And so she's meditating upon her heritage and her past and where this leaves her, which is such an interesting question. And the author, Mariana Enriquez, is a fan of this book and this author. And she says, Wiener's ease and grace allow her to talk about family, desire, racism, colonialism, and migration, both tenderly and sharply, vulnerable yet strong, like her beautiful writing. Then there is An Ordinary Youth by Walter Kempowski, which very much draws upon the author's own life growing up in Germany during World War II and witnessing how the country is changing and the ideology of the community and his own family transforms over time. So I think this is told, though, in a kind of chorus of voices to show how there are different levels of complicity as a country, slides into fascism like this. I have a new graphic memoir called Worm by Edel Rodriguez, and this is subtitled A Cuban-American Odyssey because it follows the story of how in 1980 Castro opened a harbor in Cuba to allow people to leave the country who wanted to, and Castro called those people worms. And so it follows the author's journey when he was a child, moving to America with his family, and about the challenges of integrating into that country. And he has since gone on to become a very prominent political artist. So this is telling his and his family's story. Playing Games by Huma Qureshi. This is a novel about two adult sisters who have very different outlooks on life. One is more domestically orientated and is married and wants to have children, and the other wants to pursue a creative life and has financial difficulties while working in a cafe and trying to become a writer. So it's about their connection with each other, but also the conflicts they have in having these very different ideologies about life. And so the writer Zeba Talkalni, whose memoir I absolutely loved, she says of this book that it's a riveting and evocative tale of two sisters navigating love and desire. On the Isle of Antioch by Amin Maalouf, and it's translated from the French by Natasha Lerner. This is a novel about a man who's an artist who goes to live on a very small island in the Atlantic Ocean. The only other resident there is a reclusive female writer, and one day there is a power cut which cuts them off from the rest of the world, which might be descending into nuclear war. So it's about this dramatic story of a very isolated situation. And finally, I have a creepy sounding novel for the winter months called Mothtown by Caroline Hardaker. This is about a man named David who, when he was growing up, there were rumors of people who disappeared, but this was all covered up by his parents, who kept him in the dark, and they said it was for his own good. But his own grandfather went missing, and he had spent his life trying to make a discovery and was sharing things with his grandson before he disappeared. Now, when he is in his 20s, he is living on his own, and he gets a very strange package which opens up a whole new world to him. So this sounds very mysterious and atmospheric. It's called a dark allegorical tale that plays with our perceptions of reality, and it's said to blend horror and literary fiction. So yeah, I think it'll be a really good winter read. So those are all the books that I want to talk about. Like I said, I'd love to know if you have read any of these books, or if you're keen to read any of them now. Please let me know about that, or any other books that you're hoping to read over the festive break. I hope you get some time off to do some good reading. I know I'm looking forward to that. But have a great festive period, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.